Welcome to JHart Modelworks. It's time we wrap up the Tamiya 1/24th scale Alpine Renault A110. This is probably my longest video, but there's a lot I want to cover. So grab a snack, kick back, and enjoy the video. Welcome to my workbench. Let's get started. So the side pillars fit in from the inside and are notched where the pillars are and around the outside edges. We're going to mask off the clear window sections and spray the pillars and edges with Mr. Color Super Chrome 2. This way, when we glue them in, we'll see the silver trim instead of the glue. As the chrome trim for the windshield and the rear window are molded into the clear part, we're also going to mask these off to spray them as well. You can mask them off, draw around the edge, then take them off and cut them, but trying to get them back on and lined up right can be a pain. So I'm going to just cut the tape mask on the glass. Be careful doing this though. If you veer off, you will either put a big cut in your trim or a cut in the glass. Either will be unsightly, so use a new blade, very light pressure, and just take your time. When painting glass, I also tend to mask off the back side of the glass as well, just in case there's any overspray. I've had it happen far too many times. We can also use some tape folded over itself to make a small handle to attach the glass to a paint stick. Because of the way the trim is done, I don't think I'll be able to use my UV glue to glue the glass in, as the light won't penetrate the chrome trim paint. So we'll be using some Bob Smith Super Gold Plus, as it's a non-blooming CA glue, meaning it doesn't create the fumes that fog up clear parts. It can still cause all sorts of trouble if you get it on the glass though, so we want to take our time and be really careful with it. My little glue tool has failed on me. I need to make a new one. So I'm just going to switch to the good old toothpick method. Since we are working with super glue and we are fiddling around with this, our hands, we want to check your hands constantly. There's nothing like getting super glue on your fingers, not realizing it, touching the body, and now suddenly you've got sanding and polishing work you've got to do that you didn't really want to do. That looks pretty good. While we're at it, we're going to go ahead and glue in our rear view mirror. And I like to angle it towards the driver a bit. And don't point your rear view mirror straight back, because they never point straight back. You've always got to turn them a little bit so you can see out of them. Now we're going to glue in our front glass. Again, we're still using the super glue here. Just put a little bit down and then spread it across. You want this to be really thin. You don't want the super glue to gush out around the window and then get everywhere. And we'll repeat for the back glass. Nope. Other direction, Justin. So the glass is in, everything's looking good, but you know me, I like to be just a little extra. So we're going to scratch build some sun visors. We've taken some measurements and now we're going to cut a strip out of some plastic sheet styrene to use as our sun visor material. So now that we have the basic shape cut, we're going to go ahead and round the corners off. Round them off a bit more towards the side that faces towards the driver than the back. I could have cut the corners and it would have saved a lot of time and then just rounded them from there, but I did it the hard way. After a quick test fit, I decided they were just a little too wide, so I decided to go ahead and trim a little bit off. And now we're just going to re-round those corners real quick. Once done, we'll use them as a template for the other side, and then we're ready for paint. My friend Chris from ProscaleModels sent me these pins and beads for making antennas, but I have something else in mind. I have no idea what sizes these are, so check out his channel and ask him if you're interested. So I went ahead and glued the sun visor onto the pin, so it's a little curve on the bottom actually pointed up towards the driver, and then I cut them off. When I cut them off, I broke the part off that I just glued and had to glue it back on. So my advice would be, don't be like me. Measure it, cut it off, then glue the visor onto the metal pin. So now we're going to put a little bit of super glue right on the end of the metal pin and then just touch it to the metal bead and let them glue on. Straighten the bead out before it dries. And then we're just going to tap it with a little bit of Insta-Set so that it sets and doesn't get knocked off. And now we have sun visor hardware. Now all we have to do is glue them in place. Since the surface we're gluing them to is curved, we're just going to put some CA glue on the front and the back edges of the visor where it's most likely to touch, and then just press it into place. If you end up with some blue tack left on your parts, the easiest way to remove it is to just hit it again with the blue tack. And now we have some really nice detail added with very minimal effort. This is our radiator, which in my opinion is pretty friggin' boring. So we're going to add some metal radiator mesh from Scale Production. I already cut a piece to shape to just fit on the inside of this radiator and just glued it down with some CA glue. And then we're going to add some glue to the inside of the body right on this lip where the radiator is supposed to sit. And it'll just glue in place and won't cause any interference at all. Now the body also has these two holes in the bottom which should be open, but I felt they needed mesh too. So I went ahead, used a little bit of Tamiya tape and just pressed it into place, and then used a marker to draw kind of a rough template around the openings. Using that template, we want to cut a little wide to make sure we have room for glue. And once we have the mesh cut, we want to push it into place to try and shape it a little so that it kind of follows the curve of the body. After that, we'll put some CA glue on the inside of the body around the openings. And then using some tweezers, we want to press it into place and hold it until the glue sets. Make sure the tweezers are pushing on the opening and not on the glue area so you don't glue the tweezers to the body. And that looks pretty good to me. Now it's time to make the body of the chassis, and honestly this was a bit of a fight. You have to pry at the sides to get the chassis to slide in. Now the exhaust needs to sit outside the body, but the way it's attached, it wants to slide inside and get caught and break off. So you got to watch out for that. Now after that, the body will slide most of the way in place, but for me it stopped just short of seating the front end. The corners on the front end of the body wanted to hang on the chassis and didn't want to let it sit in place. No matter how I pressed or pulled, it didn't want to pop in. So finally I busted out Tamiya's metal stir stick and gently pried the chassis in past each corner. Now while messing with this, be really careful because it's really easy to get your hands on that front suspension and break parts off. Success! Once it finally goes in, everything sits perfect. All the interior parts, the front of the dash, the back of that engine cover, all sit perfect and flush, nothing's bound, and it looks really good. The kit comes with door handles on the chrome sprue that belong to one model year of the car with smooth sides. But if you look at the body, it's molded for a different body year with just the locks and the handles molded into the back side of the door. So if you want to use the chrome ones, you should fill the rectangular notches in the body before you paint it. If you remember from the body video though, we drilled these door locks and we're going to use some 1.2mm rivets from Top Studios to replicate the locks. I like to use a magnet when working with these as they are tiny and the magnet makes them a little easier to pull out and manage. And sometimes if you drop one, if it falls right, the magnet will catch it instead of the carpet monster. We're using Elmer's white glue for these. Unlike CA glue, PVA glues give you a lot more time to fiddle with the rivets not wanting to go in right. It doesn't instantly glue the rivets to your skin. And unlike CA, when you are done, you can easily just clean off any excess or accidental finger touches with a wet cotton bud. We're also going to use a 1.2mm rivet back here for the engine cover release button. Also during the body prep, we drilled out and sanded off the washer fluid dispensers. we're going to use some 0.8mm rivets from Top Studio to replace these. I would rather have used a 1mm rivet. I think it would have been a better look, but it's becoming impossible to find these things now. And here we are. Like I said, I think a 1mm would have stood out a little better. It also would stand out better against a darker color like blue or red instead of the white, but I think it looks pretty good. We're moving on to the front of the car, starting with putting down some bare metal foil in the recesses where the turn signals go. This will give the turn signals a reflective pop. As always, use a brand new blade for this, and be really careful while you're cutting this out so you don't put a big gouge in your body. I try to keep at least one finger from the cutting hand on the body at all times. It kind of helps to stabilize my hand while I'm cutting. Anytime working with bare metal foil, you want to burnish the material down right after you cut, and again after you remove the excess material. Now we just add a little Super Gold Plus and set the amber turn signals in place. I would rather use the UV glue for this, but the UV light doesn't really penetrate the clear red or clear orange paints very well. I would like to inflict violence upon whoever at Tamiya decided it would be an awesome idea to put metal transfers across an open hole in the body. You have to try and place these transfers so the little bit of metal touches both sides of the hole. And because the transfers aren't adhered to anything, when you try and remove the clear protective film, it yanks the transfers off as well. The front name and diamond logo transfers are much better. If you cut the Alpine letters and the diamond off together, you can use the diamond to line up with the chrome body trim as your center point, and everything else can be rubbed down straight and even. Then you just have to carefully peel the film away without pulling up any letters. Go slow, and if you pull anything up, stop, burnish it back down, wait a few seconds, and try again. If you do it right, it comes out looking pretty good. Now we're just going to put on the bumperettes. It doesn't matter which one goes on which side, but there is an angle to them, so watch what direction they go on so that they sit flush. In my opinion, these fog lights look stupid. If I was paying attention before I painted the body, I would have filled the holes and left them off. But I didn't, so we need to glue the chrome trim onto the housing with some CA glue. Once that's in place, we'll put just a tiny bit of UV glue under the visor where it's less likely to be seen, and then we'll spread it around the edges with the tip of the UV glue pen. Then we can just carefully place the lens and cure it with the light. Then we'll use some CA glue to glue the fog light onto the body. Make sure it seats all the way into this little rectangular receptacle. Now we're going to glue on the bumpers, and these are kind of weird. There's a little nub that sticks out of the body, and then there's a hole on the body. And one end lines up with a pin that sort of fits in there, but not really. And then the nub just nestles up inside a little socket in the bumper. Next, we'll put on the high beams. Using UV glue again, we're going to glue the clear lens to the chrome trim, and then we'll use CA to glue the light to the body. There is a small notch on the bottom of the assembly, and that lines up to a small notch on the body socket as well. The headlights are going to be a repeat of the same thing. Use UV glue for the lenses and then CA glue them to the body. Again, it may look like I'm putting a lot of UV glue all the way around the trim. I'm really not. I'm just putting a tiny bit down and spreading it around the edge of the trim and then curing it in place. It does not take much, less is more. Now we have the lens covers to set, but first I want to go around the edge with a silver Sharpie. This is going to give us a bright aluminum looking trim effect around the clear cover. Then we can place just a bit of UV glue at the top and bottom of the headlight cover area and cure the cover in place. Be careful with these, they go on a specific direction, so don't get them on the wrong side and don't get them pointed upside down. The taillights came out gorgeous. If I were to do them again, I would paint the clear orange and red from the inside, then mask off the outside and paint the chrome all the way around. But only because masking them messed up the finish and I had to apply some X22 with a brush to fix it. We're just going to put some CA glue on these two holes and then press it into place, and when they go in, there's a definite click. This is a rear fog light, not a reverse light. Had I known that, I'd have left it off too. It doesn't look as bad as the front fog lights do, but looking at reference photos, the back end looks a lot cleaner without it. Next, there's this little chrome ball at the bottom, and I think it's supposed to be a light for the license plate. Let's put a little CA and then carefully put this down. Now what you're not going to see is that it took me 15 minutes to get this stupid thing to sit flat and go into place. The joys of editing. The rear bumper's gone pretty nice. There's a couple of small little pegs. They go into small little holes. Everything lines up perfectly well. It's not a very tight fit, so there is a little wobble, so just, be patient and make sure they go on straight. And again, check your fingers constantly. This is another real good place for getting glue on your fingers and then getting it on the body. Now we're going to glue on the license plate holder. We'll deal with the license plate itself later. One thing to note is that there is a notch on one side, and it needs to point up towards the engine cover release button. Now we're going to glue on these rear vents. These are supposed to be over openings in the body to take fresh air into the engine bay. So I added a couple of rounds of Tamiya black panel liner in between the chrome strips so it would look open. These are side specific, so check your alignment first. Once you have the vents in place, then we're going to add a little bit of glue in here, and again, these are side specific. We've got these tiny little covers that go over the back end. Now, I forgot to catch it on camera, but there are 4 bolts on each one of these, and I just hit those with some Vallejo silver on each one of those bolts with a mechanical pencil. She's coming along nice. The engine cover also has a metal transfer Alpine Renault logo, and once again you can use the diamond badge to line up on the center. Then just make sure your letters are straight and press it down. And that's going to wrap it up for the rear end. Now for the wheels. I don't normally show painting the wheels, but I thought it might be helpful to somebody out there if I showed my process for two-toning wheels. I'm going to take a measurement for the inside of the wheel area. Then using my display circle cutter, I can very quickly and easily cut 4 perfectly matching, perfectly circular wheel masks. On a side note, before I started the wheels, I painted them in Tamiya gloss black as it's a great base for metallic colors. When you pull off the masks, don't throw anything away. We want to keep both parts. There's 2 down, 2 to go. I also measured the depth of the wheel rim, and I'm going to apply some 2mm Tamiya masking tape around the wheel rim. I got the 1, 2, and 3mm tapes for this kit, and they have been really useful all the way through the build. Now getting this in the wheel is a fiddly process, but it really helps to cut down on overspray. Once we have that down, we can put the outer mask over the wheel. We want to make sure we get it lined up straight, and then we'll be ready to put some paint on the center. Speaking of color, we're using Mr. Color's Super Metallic Super Rich Gold. This is a brand new color I saw on Barbados Rex's channel, and it's a gorgeous color. It's just a little more red and richer than the Super Gold 2. Both are great choices for wheel centers. Alright, these are looking good. We just need to get these unmasked real quick. And now we're going to place the center masks that we kept from earlier. We want to make sure we get these lined up evenly and pressed down smooth. Back to the booth, and we're going to spray the outer wheels with Alclad polished aluminum. I really like this color. For wheels, I like it even better than the chrome. Over a gloss black, you get that high polished, almost reflective finish like a chrome, but it's a much brighter silver than most chromes are. When the light catches that outer rim, it just really shines. So we're going to go ahead and do the decals on the center caps. While we dip the decal in water, we're going to go ahead and open up some micro set and set that on the wheel centers. And we'll just drop that decal in right there and then nudge it into place. Now for the lug nuts, we're going to drop a little bit of Vallejo silver onto some Tamiya tape, bust out our 0.5mm mechanical pencil, and we're just going to tap the tops of each one of these little lug nuts. Now I should have done this first. We're just going to go ahead and tap just a little bit of Tamiya black panel liner in there just to accent this a little bit. We'll go back in off camera and touch up the lug nuts again. There we go. Now we need to take care of the tires. We're going to load them up into my handy tire jig. I've explained this in a few videos. I got the idea from Matt over at Model Car Videos. He does a full video explaining how to make it, so go check him out. Once in the jig, we can just chuck it into our drill and set it spinning. We'll then take a 120 grit UMP sander and let it wear down the tire a bit to give it that nice, worn, driven-on look. Here you can definitely see the difference, much more realistic looking. And here's the finished wheel and tire setup. To mount the tires, we just press them in while wiggling them back and forth, and they eventually slide snugly into place. Be very careful though when doing the front wheels. Don't put too much pressure or you can wind up breaking the suspension or breaking the steering linkage bar. Either one's going to be a whole mess to try and put back together. I think those look great, especially against the white and the red. That gold just really pops. We have a few odds and ends to wrap up here, starting with some decals. There are a couple of gold diamond Renault badges that need to go over the diamond metal transfers on the front and rear of the car. We also need to do our registration sticker, which I forgot to record. Once we get that decal popped on, we'll just kind of nudge it into place. And then we'll completely nudge it out of place with our cotton bud, trying to soak up the moisture. So that we can nudge it back into place again. We have another one to do on the front as well. Same thing, same process. Just get the diamond set in place on top of the metal transfer. Then remove the excess moisture and nudge it into place. More metal transfers. There's these tiny little A logos that need to go on each side of the fender, right above that trim piece we created. There's one on each side, and they went down pretty easy. There's also a metal transfer that goes on our rearview mirror. Gives us a really nice mirror shine finish that you just can't really get with the chrome paint. And with that set in place, we're going to go ahead and use some more Super Gold Plus to just set it right here in this little groove. I absolutely hate using super glue on the body. I'm always afraid that I'm going to get super glue on the paint and mess up the paint. We have a little tab on the bottom of the mirror that just sits right into this notch in the body. And finally, we have the windshield wipers, which I tried to make some photo etch windshield wipers. I have yet to make a set of photo etch windshield wipers. It doesn't look absolutely terrible. Usually looks like a ball of CA glue attacked some leftover bits of metal. I ended up going back to the kit parts, which honestly, the detail on the kit wipers is really good. One thing I do like to do when I respray the chrome is I like to go in and just take some flat black and run it right along the edge of the wiper to simulate the rubber wiper blade. No build can be complete without a license plate. And here lately I've taken to making my plates separate of the kit part using actual aluminum from a soda can. We'll just set our DIY license plate decal onto the aluminum, and once it dries we can then cut it out. I like to cut wide. I can then go back after and trim the excess aluminum right up to the plate decal. Don't forget to notch your corners, as most plates have rounded corners. Once the plate is made, we're going to add some 0.03 inch photo etch bolts from ProTech. I love these little things. Just add a couple of drops of PVA or even CA glue, your choice, over the bolt holes, then moisten the end of a toothpick to pick up one of the little bolt heads and set it into place. And then carefully use the other end of the toothpick to nudge it around in the right spot, right where it needs to go. Now all we got to do is glue it into place. And we're finished. That's going to wrap it up for this build. Join me as we head to the display case for a final look. Here we are, all wrapped up. All in all, I'm pretty happy with it. There are a couple of things I don't love, but mostly that's aesthetic stuff. Like, I hate the fog lights. I think they make the car look a bit bug-eyed and goofy. I don't really care for the rear fog light either, that sort of thing. Paint-wise, there's a small issue right up here on the front where the tape lifted and we got some overspray from the stripes. That's on me. There's just no real way to fix it either other than to strip and respray. If you try to fix the white, you're never going to get the tones to match up. And I just don't feel this is worth stripping the paint over. Build-wise, the kit is fantastic. No complaints fit-wise on anything. The engine looks great. I think separating the carbs was a nice touch. The added distributor can't really be seen, but the plug wires look great and have a really nice contrast. That fuel line running through there looks absolutely perfect. Nice details where you want them. A quick look at our undercarriage here, lots of detail. I did leave off the panels. I just like being able to see the suspension detail a lot better. I absolutely love the new Mr. Color Super Metallic Rich Gold on those wheels. I think it's a fantastic contrast to the white and the chrome on the body. I did end up going and doing a second coat of flocking for the heat material. I think this is supposed to be asbestos or something under this engine cover. I really think a second coat really helped that out. We'll try to move the light to get a better look at the interior, which all of that looks really nice in there. I love the harnesses. I really love the Ferrari Bordeaux red paint from Zero Paints. This is the first time I've done a red interior. It looks really nice. It's not too bright of a red. It's just, I mean, it's got that gorgeous red leather look. The seats have that cloth look on the insides, which we did with the micro balloons, and that came out great as well. Really like the interior. For the plates, I made 3 different plate designs. I had a black version of this plate and a red version of the Texas Vintage plate, but I think this one was the best fit. It really goes with the lines of the car. And when the light hits those taillights, they came out really nice. So yeah, all in all, once again, I have to say I'm quite pleased with the build. Next week, I'm probably going to do a channel update. I have some things coming up and I kind of want to discuss them. I'm not starting a new build just yet. I'll have more on that next week. But as for now, thanks for watching, keep modeling, and I'll catch you on the next one. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. Also, feel free to leave comments, feedback, critique, or anything else in the comment section below. I enjoy interacting with all my viewers in the comment section and try to reply to all the comments I receive. If you want to catch future videos, please consider subscribing to my channel and make sure you click the bell notification icon so you can be notified when I upload new videos. As always, thank you for watching, keep modeling, and have a great day.